in life, I'm learning that the weeds just grow with the wheat. Several years ago, I got a call from the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. I was living in Virginia at the time, but the Children's Hospital in Atlanta called to tell me that I still owed them money and a bill was in the mail. This was 3 years later. Apparently, they did an internal audit and discovered that they undercharged me by $250. This was for my son had tubes in his ears. This was 3 years prior. For the first 9 months of his life, he was on antibiotics every month for ear infections until we got those tubes. And honestly, I don't think he's had another for the last 11 years. So I am incredibly grateful for modern medicine, the doctors, for their ability to help my son. But that same hospital, 3 years later, discover that I owe them more money because they did a random internal audit and they pulled my chart and discovered that they used more gauze than I apparently paid for. This is what I mean when I say the weeds grow with the wheat. The bad grows with the good. And that's true for people, it's true for organizations, it's true for churches. We are complicated, we are layered. The good and the bad grow together. Our parable this morning reflects the same energy, and that Jesus tells us what we ought to do about it. So I want to read it again. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." And the slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, No, for in gathering the weeds, you'll uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. At harvest time, I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first, bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into the barn. That's the parable. We don't talk about this one much. I'd be shocked if you've ever even heard it. It's a bit dark. It alludes to the final judgment of things, and there's something you need to know. There's only a handful of times does this happen in Scripture, but the gospel elaborates on this parable. We get an interpretation of what it means, and it's from Jesus. So let's back up for a second. Matthew 13, that's the chapter we're in all month. It's full of parables. You get the one about the sower, the mustard seed, the yeast, treasure in a field, a net, merchant. It's one after another. But in the midst of all of these parables, Scripture says Jesus takes a break, goes inside. The disciples follow him in, and then they privately ask him to explain what in the world is going on with that one about the weeds and the wheat. All right, I'm going to read this to you. This is Matthew 13, 36 through 43. Here we go. This is Jesus' interpretation. Then he left the crowds and he went into the house. And his disciples approached him saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." And he, Jesus, answered, "The one who sows good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, the weeds are the children of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels. They will collect out all of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers. They will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of the Father. Let anyone with ears listen. That's Jesus' interpretation. So I made a chart. I want us to look at this. These are the associations Jesus makes. On the left is the parable, the metaphor, and on the right is what Jesus says they mean. So I'm going to reread the parable, but I'm going to insert Jesus' interpretation. I want to keep the chart up on the screen so you can follow along as I read it. I think this will help. And keep in mind, this parable, it's dark. Here we go. The Son of Man went into the world to plant good kids for the kingdom. But while everybody was asleep, the evil one came and planted evil kids among the good kids and then went away. The good and evil kids grew and matured together. Followers of Jesus came and said, "Jesus, we thought you intended only to sow good kids. Where then did these evil kids come from?" And Jesus answered, "An enemy has done this." The followers of Jesus said to him, "Then do you want us to go and to remove them from the field?" And Jesus replied, "No. In gathering the evil kids, you'll uproot some of the good kids along with them. Let them grow together until the end of the age. And at that time, I'll tell the angels, collect the evil kids first, bind them to be cast out, but let's gather the good kids into the kingdom." There's a lot here. But here's where my mind focuses. First, the parable is what happens at the end of the age. There's no getting around this. And for Matthew, this idea of the end of the age is just par for the course. In Matthew's gospel alone, the author comments on the end of the age in Matthew 7, which is Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. Then again in Matthew 10, right here in Matthew 13 in the parable, again in Matthew 16, then again in Matthew 19, and then it is incredibly pronounced in Matthew 25 with 3 parables of the sheep and the goats, the lighting of the lanterns, and the wedding banquet. Even the very last line of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, verse 20, says this, "And remember, I am with you always, to the end of the age." That's how the gospel ends. For Matthew, this end of the age is a huge theme. There are stipulations for how you make it. There's the reality that some won't if they don't meet the expectations. This end of the age is a major theme, specifically in Matthew's gospel. So today's parable says the ones who make it, they're the wheat. The ones who don't, well, they're the weeds. Interpreting this for today is very tricky, but I think there's a message in here for us. And I want to ask a question, because I think Scripture and this parable demands that we ask it. I don't mean for it to be taken lightly, and I'm definitely not joking. Here's the question. Are people born evil and then remain evil until they die? Or can everyone become wheat? I know that's an unfair, it's a heavy question, but I think it matters for us to ask it because it colors how we view humanity. It really shapes how we talk to people and engage people, especially who are different from us. And this question, it's not new. It's existed for centuries. It's a part of the mystery of our faith. And the reason why it's still a question is because arguments can be made on both sides. I mean, it's borderline paradoxical. I'm not quite ready to use the word paradox because we don't have all the facts. It's just part of the mystery of our faith. We don't fully know what happens when we're born. And we definitely don't fully know what happens when we die. We don't know if people are born fully evil with no ability to be redeemed. And we don't know that they aren't. And so it's left to a debate. I can tell you, at this point, when you get to this place, you have to allow Scripture to do a few things. You got to let it breathe. Don't push the text to answer your anxiety too quickly. You need to breathe with the text as well. The passage tells you something, but it doesn't tell you everything. If it was intended to tell you everything, there wouldn't be all these other stories surrounding it. If Jesus meant to say it all, it would be the only thing he said. But this parable, it does guide us. It frames for us difficult questions. And I think we have to hold it in concert with the other texts of Scripture. And for the record, I think it's important for you to know where I stand on this issue. I have wrestled with this for a long time. When I lay Scripture out and I try to hear from all of its different parts, what I can't shake, what has become foundational for me, is that God is always love. I think God's essential nature is love, which means I think God operates towards humanity only out of love. Now, I also believe every single person is made in the image of that love and has the ability to become wheat. But I also think every person, although they are made in the image of God's love, has the ability to become a weed. I hold a high emphasis in my faith and with Scripture on God's love, but almost equal to it is humanity's free will. But I will concede my arguments are not airtight, but I will tell you they are biblically sound. All of this is a faith claim. So let's just assume I'm right. That's a good place to start. Using the parable's metaphor, I'm arguing that weeds choose their weediness, and therefore they have the option to choose to become wheat. I think that's why God says, don't pluck them out until the end of the age, because I'm going to love them all the way to the end of the line. This would explain why when the good helpers go to the homeowner and say, Master, there's a lot of evil out in the field, we can just go get them. We can pluck them out, right out for you. If you want us to do that, then the wheat, they can just grow freely, unencumbered. Do you want us to do that? The master replies, no, don't do that. You can't. You might pluck out one of the good ones, and I'm still working on the bad ones. I think about this line a lot. The farmers admit there's evil, but he doesn't want the helpers deciding who is in and who is out. Definitely not prematurely. He doesn't need the wheat to act as judge. God's got that handled. The angels will come at the end of the age. They will be the ones who decide. It's God's job to determine who's weed and wheat. And specifically with this parable, that's the role of the angels. And this is the message I think we need to hear today, because we're the good, weedy people. And the parable is telling us we don't get to judge. Now, keep in mind the context. This explanation is private. It is with the disciples in a closed meeting behind closed doors to help them. The disciples heard Jesus preach this out in front of the crowds, and then privately he was like, you got to say more about that. What is going on? He's letting the disciples know it's not their job to go out there and to divide the crowd into weeds and wheat. The evil they see in the world, it won't threaten the good that is in the world. It's only when the good try to become judge of what is evil, that's what destroys the good. The evil won't destroy the good. I mean, really think about that. You aren't being diminished because there's evil around you. You don't need to prune the evil to allow for more space for your goodness. The weeds grow with the wheat. Now, remember in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 7, Jesus declares that thou shalt not judge or you will be judged. It goes like this. This is Matthew 7, 1 and 2. Do not judge so that you may not be judged. For the judgment you give will be the judgment you get. And the measure you give will be the measure that you get. Our parable seems to be a shining repeat example of this. It's not the wheat's job to cast out the weeds. When the wheat assume that role, though, declaring what is good, what is not good, then we're judged by that same measure. And I think the global church, not just us, but the church has to hear this. We may think this parable is all about those people doing evil. And to a degree it is. It's layered. Scripture has layers. It's never one thing. You can focus all your attention on the evil weeds if you want. But this parable is also about us, making sure that we're not the ones who think it's our job to police who's in and who's out. By the way, the church has failed at that for 2,000 years. You know what the job of the wheat is? It's to grow. Keep growing. Jesus is reminding us all that no matter how much evil we endure, it's never our job to condemn. We're never to pluck the weeds. Those decisions happen on God's time at the end of the age by the angels. And I think the global church has to wrestle with this. I mean, for centuries, we've cocooned ourselves into echo chambers. But this parable reminds us that was never God's intent. The wheat is supposed to live among the weeds. That's an interesting detail. We're supposed to live with the weeds. We're supposed to love our enemies. That's another major theme in the Sermon on the Mount. So let me say, evil exists. It's all around. For some of us, we've experienced it or even participated in it. But now we're the helpers in the field. And our job is not to condemn, but to step back into the field and to befriend the weeds. We can help them become wheat. I mean, I think every weed has a shot at being wheat. If we stop acting as the judge of what is good and what's evil, we can focus on being good, growing, and helping the weeds become wheat.